Hello everybody and welcome to my session on drones. This is always a little bit interesting. Today, as you can see, I've dressed as the same colour as my home office carpet, which has thrown me a little bit because I normally have like a green screen. So we'll just start going through the presentation. First of all, I am known on social media as the drone lass. So I started flying drones about 6 years ago, and and when I started, nobody would share information about the drones. It was all like my information. So what I set up was a blog called The Drone Lass, which indicates that I am female, I fly a drone, and I'm based in the north of England. So the people that I've flown for are BBC, Channel 4, Channel 5. We have independent television companies. I've done BBC News, BBC Breakfast, and I'm on the first option safety preferred suppliers list. And I'm also a trainer for global drone training. They're dronetraining.co.uk, but they're actually global drone training. So this session is called Drone, Fly and Shoot. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look at drones. You may be a beginner because this is mainly aimed at beginners. So if you're an experienced drone pilot, this may not actually be helpful to you. But what I'm doing is just going to lead people through the steps of getting a drone, purchasing their first drone, getting airborne and getting out there and shooting. So first of all, about purchasing your own drone. Look at your own budget, find out how much you've got to spend on your first drone. Now, there are plenty of options when you are looking to buy your drone. First of all, is that budget? And then what do you want it for? Because if you're wanting to get pro with it, pretty quickly you might find out that the drone that you've bought is the wrong drone. So it's always that like business idea, whether you're going to buy a drone that you can start using professionally as soon as you've qualified, or is it something that you're just going to learn on, enjoy, and then look at purchasing a more advanced drone. And then buy what you can afford to crash is what somebody always said to me, which seems really harsh, but the hard fact is that you are probably going to crash your drone. So try and keep it safe and follow all the instructions and stay away from things that you're going to crash into, which we'll go into a little bit further. Or get insurance or a care package. So if your drone provider does a package, then you can purchase additional it's sort of like an insurance. So basically, if you do crash, you can return it and they'll repair it, or they'll give you a new one, which is quite handy. So just going through the technology here. It's all new to me, so apparently you control it with the phone, but the phone keeps going off, so I must talk faster. Okay, so let's just go through the drones here. So we've got the Mini 2, which I purchased recently. I took it out on my first flight a Sunday ago. I've not had a chance to look at the footage yet, but it does look like an amazing drone, and it's relatively cheap. Now, when we say it is relative cheap. These are always the hundreds of pounds. You've got to remember that. There's no obstacle avoidance, but don't worry about that. I learned without obstacle avoidance, and it is a great beginner's drone. Okay, things to think about with the Mini 2 is, as we're moving into spring now, because this session is called Spring Shoots, is that we're going to get nesting birds. And we always say to drone pilots, don't fly near nesting bird sites because it does disturb them, and mother birds get quite aggressive towards a drone and it causes stress with wildlife. So do bear that in mind. And I think the Mini 2 is going to be seen as a little bit more of a threat probably to a bird, because they're going to look at it and it is bird sized. So that's something to bear in mind, that is staying away from nesting birds. Okay, let's move on to the next, which is the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. Absolutely brilliant drone. This is the one that I use professionally. I film on it for BBC and independent production companies making things for Channel 4, etc. It's an absolutely brilliant drone. The camera on it is great. The color space on it is great, and it's got everything to offer. It's great when you do your raw photographs. You've got plenty of scope there for changing the image to manipulate it within Photoshop or Lightroom. So it's a really good drone, and it does actually measure up with some really expensive broadcast cameras. And it's priced at about £1,700, so it's not a cheap drone. And then you've got your Phantom 4 Pro V2, which I'm not quite sure about the V2, what changes happened between the Phantom 4 Pro. It is still available to buy. It went off the market for a while, came back. It's a great drone. It's got a great camera. The camera's not as good as a Mavic 2 Pro, but equally it's great for, I use it in broadcast as well as my backup drone. And a lot of people using it for photogrammetry and that kind of thing. So here we've got the Parrot Anafi, which is a great drone that sort of doesn't look as sleek and, you know, sexy as the Mavic Pro 2, but it has got a great camera on it. And the advantages is that it's an awful lot cheaper. So there is alternatives to DJI. And what I would recommend is that you join the Facebook group or forum connected to Parrot, so that you've got lots of people to discuss about how you're going to overcome troubleshooting, because at the end of the day these are quite complex pieces of kit and they can go wrong, so you need to have a little bit of support, I think. Okay, and then obviously we've got this Atool Evio 2 rugged drone, which is available from, I think Wex have got them, and I believe that it is a very good flight. The flight experience is as good as a DJI drone, and the camera is comparable, so that is another alternative if you wanting to move away from DJI. And then we hit the DJI Inspire 2, which is obviously right up there with the Pro drone. It's got interspersible cameras with interchangeable lenses. You've got put prime lenses on there and shoot ProRes, but then obviously that comes with a cost. So I think if you're starting out, this is something to aspire to, if you pardon the pun, and it's a great drone, but it is not possibly one that you want to start out on. Okay, so what we've had recently in the UK is new drone laws. So originally what happened was you were either a hobbyist, a leisure flyer, somebody who just did it for fun, posted on Instagram and enjoyed your content. And then you had the commercial drone operators, and for that you needed a PFCO, which is a permission for commercial operation. Now what we have is that we have new laws, which we've got the open category, which is a low risk drone, registered with the CAA. It's 250 grams and less. Now it's registered with the CAA if you're using it on a commercial basis, but if you're using it for fun and enjoyment, then that you don't need to register that with the CAA. But if even though it's under 250 grams, if you're a professional photographer and you're adding that to your offering, then you need to get that registered. And then what comes with that is that you'll be able to get insurance. With the drone, if you're just using it, and you just need to be aware of where you can and can't fly it. Now we'll go a little bit into the open category and where you can fly that 250 gram sub drone, and we'll get into that a little bit, because it is quite mind-blowing that you are going to be able to take off from most places. Then we've got the specific. This is split into different categories by weight of drone. Now if you're purchasing a drone now, I would say you need to make sure that you're going to be able to use it pretty quickly, because the drones are changing. There will be new drones issued to correspond with the law, which is something that we're aligning with Europe, and they were either CE marked drones for European standard or UK marked drones. Now we've left as part of Brexit. So that specific category is broken down, and we're going to have legacy drones, which means that the Phantom 4 Pro V2 and the Mavic 2 Pro are going to become legacy drones, which means that you will only be able to fly them out in open spaces, because what's going to happen is there's going to be new safety features, so limiting the speed, and also about the ingress of water. So and then you've got certified, which possibly could be taxis, manned drones, and even bigger drones than we can possibly even think of, which is the specific category covers up to 200 to 25 kilograms. Yeah, 25 kilograms. So it's a really big drone. So now this is where we've got to tinker with the phone. The flying for fun. So if you're flying for fun, because I'm thinking that most people, first of all, that are attending this workshop will be flying for fun. And you can search the CAA drone. And in there, if you just search CAA drone, it will pop up. There's loads of space. There's loads of like links on there about becoming a commercial operator, not flying for fun, but actually flying for commercial enterprise, but also it'll give you information. There's lots of really useful flyers that you can print down or download to your phone that explain what the law is, and they're really, really handy. They've got loads of lovely handy tips. So if you are going to fly for commercial reasons, then that sub 250 gram drone needs to be registered with the CAA, and your operator ID is a little sort of number that you print out and stick on the drone. It must be visible, and it's about £9 a year. The Mini is exempt if it's not commercial, so that's what I said before. And what I think is really handy is that is an online worksheets and workshops and a test. So you can do the workshop if you're not going to go commercial and you've got your Mini 2. You could go in there, learn about what they say about where you should fly and thinking about health and safety, because at the end of the day you are buying something that could cause damage to a person or property. So you need, and also you've paid quite a lot of money for this drone, so you want it to be safe. There are online so the online test is for if you're doing the operator ID, so that when you have an operator ID and you have a pilot's ID, and then they're registered with the CAA. And as I say, you may or may not need insurance. So when we're flying in the open category, and we've got this 250 gram sub drone and Mini 2, we have this thing called the rule of thumb, which means that we can't fly close to people more than 50 meters. And then when you go up, this is rule of thumb, the higher you take that drone in the sky, and you're limited to 400 foot, is that you need to be 400 feet away from people who are uninvolved with what you're doing. So what the idea is, it's about the physics, so that when that drone is high in the sky, it's going to come, if there's anything happens to it, it's going to come down, basically it's going to come down faster, and as it comes down, that could cause an incident with somebody. Okay, so brand new drones out of the box. DJI will tell you can just get a drone out of the box and fly it. And I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. First of all, read the instructions. Everybody gets so excited. You maybe have got one for your birthday, or a courier's brought it and you think, right, I'm going to go and fly today. What I would say is read the instructions and watch the training videos by whoever is flying that, who's made that drone. They are brilliant and helping you navigate your way around. Charge the drone, charge the controller, tablet or phone, whichever you're using, and then also fire it up inside the house. And I don't mean fly it, I mean fire it all up and let it get onto the internet, your Wi-Fi, and it will see if there's any firmware updates. Because if you bought that drone may have been made in, say, December, and it's now March, maybe you get one in April. There may be new firmware, and the firmware is helping you navigate your way around, but also it might have fixed any bugs that was in the system with the drone. So it could be camera issues, or it could even be flight issues. So it's really important to update that firmware. Okay, so if you're going on a commercial shoot as well, we always suggest people check the firmware the morning before, so if I was flying tomorrow, I'd be looking at stuff today I can troubleshoot if there's any issues. Location is about where can I fly. So you may know that you're not allowed to fly near airports in the UK. It's important that you find out how far, whether you fly into that distance. So to check the DJI no fly if you're using DJI, but even if you're not using DJI, it's quite a handy thing because it shows you where you shouldn't fly. But then also a drone assist is a app that is really useful so that you can find out about where you can fly. So what you're doing is you're looking for some open space with a little bit of permission. I think if you go just fly anywhere, even though we're allowed to with the open category, we can go wherever we like because we've got a really small drone, is that you might find that you could start upsetting people, and farmers particularly often are open to you flying there if you ask. So if you ask and you say, I can give you some photographs, I'll send them to you on email after I've done, that goes a long way to getting you some space. But also there is a company called Drone Prep. If you Google that, so it's Drone Prep, all one word. They have got like an app, so that helps you find out where you can fly. But basically, you're looking for open space, and it might be even a park. So a friend of mine is a park ranger. You just ask. You know, she just said if you ask, they'll say yes, as long as you're not flying erratically over people and there's not an event taking place. Because one of the key things with the open category and you've got a small drone is you're going to stay away from airports, but you're also going to you're not going to fly over crowds of people. So that means that you can't, you know, buy the drone and take it down to the local high street and get some shots of the high street, because you're going to have people walking around. However, if you're, you know, it's completely desolate, then I'm always going to be looking for a safe space to take off. And also you need to keep that drone in visual line of sight and keeping in line with all of the recommendations from the CAA. Okay. So getting the best out of your drone. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're just going to look at kind of like what is in the system. So I know that I've edited my PowerPoint presentation, but it's within the system. But here we're just going to look at the DJI here, drone here. So when you've got your app open, you'll have these 3 little dots are in the right hand corner. If you click on there, this will open up the settings. Now, if you look at just, I don't know how big it is on the screen, the PowerPoint, but when you look, there's like a little icon which flicks between video camera and stills camera, and then you can find in there, you can put in the settings. This is just a snapshot of the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. And in here you can change the ISO, so obviously you can lift pictures, you can add in more light, you can change the aperture, and you can change the speed. So they're the 3 things that let more light within to the camera. So that's really good, but only if you click the manual setting, because it's just like getting a DSLR. You want to go in there and change things and get to grips. What I would recommend is, if you're new to flying drones, is fly the drone several times before you even start thinking like a photographer or a filmmaker, because it is really, we're very visual people and we can end up really hooked onto that screen. And what you want to do is just enjoy learning how to fly the drone, controlling it and feeling safe that you can do that. And then the fun starts, because then you're actually going to be flying a camera, and that's really exciting. And then you're going to be constantly looking at what your drone is, but also setting things in the app. What I'd suggest you do is always set the things in the app before you get off flying. So that's something that you could do in the house. Like I could do that in this office here. I could go through my drone, have a quick look, change the settings. Now, you know, there are lots of features within the app, but what I'm going to do is make sure that I don't go into those in too far detail, because this is just a beginner session. Okay, so here we go again. Let's just here we go. It's just updating. Okay. So on here, when you end up in the auto, it will just go into a set aperture and a set shutter speed. As I say, you can flip through to be video or stills. So in here, there's some very useful tools that you may find on your DSLR camera. You can set a histogram. You can have a look at, it can also show you where you're overexposing images, which is great. So when you've got that drone in the air and you're doing a still shot or video, you can see how far you're peaking with too much light in, and you can control. So on the controller, what's really handy is there's lots of like jog wheels that you can use to bring that exposure down. Okay, I noticed that there's an awful lot of questions appearing in the chat box, and what we're going to do is I'm going to rapidly go through this, because what we found last time, so well actually most times, is there always a lot more questions than me doing a presentation. So we'll go through this and then I will get to the chat box, because it is filling up quite fast. So here we go again. I do apologise for the tech. I can fly a drone, but obviously I'm struggling to access all of this very slick broadcasting technology. So in here, when we're flying on the camera with a, whatever at the moment I'm only looking at DJI because I only fly DJI, and I am open to flying other drones, but at the moment that's what I've got. So in here, and when you've got the video on, you can set the movie size, what format you want it to be, and you can put a style, so you can fly in log and all of that kind of thing. So just to get a quick drink of water. So when you set you can set your white balance, and you can actually manually set white balance, which is an amazing thing. But equally, you can choose just to set one, which is, you know, daylight, night, etc. And in here, it's really good to just know about 4K. These are little tips that I give to people all the time. You may not be editing in 4K, and you may be shooting a video on a different type of camera, and that might be 1080 or whatever you've got your setting as. Top tip is always fly in always film in 4K on your, because that is what DJI have set the camera up as native. So when you fly in 1080, when you record in 1080, what you're doing is you're using a compressor chip which is within the camera, and when you go inside that, you click in, and what you're doing is you're reducing the quality within camera. Now, if I've got a big TV camera that a production company has given me, and it's 4K and it's native 4K, I'll hit 1080 if that's what we're filming in, because that's what most broadcast is filmed in, would you believe? And what happens there is that you go through into the compressor chip, but in DJI drones and then all of the other drones, it's so small it can't compress, so you get really bad quality. The other problem that we have when we shoot with video on a DJI drone is the sharpness. So you might see in your footage, you get like wavy lines, and that's because the camera is super sharp, and then it comes across maybe a corrugated roof or in a farm, or it could come across lines on a building, and you get this sort of like what we call aliasing, and it's like shaky in the footage. So all you do with that is when you put it into an edit system like Premiere Pro, you just go in there and use a filter called Gaussian blur, and what you do is just adjust that and soften your picture a tiny bit. Doesn't mean it won't be out of focus. So what I think is really good about DJI, most of the time your camera is fully in focus, and when you press on the screen you can always just double check that it is in focus. I only had one incident of my Mavic 2 Pro going out of focus when I was filming, and it was in Australia, and it really threw me. And basically, if anything happens like that and it won't work in the app, land it, reboot it, and it'll come back online, unless obviously you've got a problem. So there's a few troubleshooting issues there within video that I just always like to try and share with people, because sometimes it just gets a little bit frustrating when you first start out finding out all of that information. Okay, so here and there you can actually amend, as I say, you can amend the sharpness within camera, but I tend not to, and I tend to do it in post-production. Okay, so JPEG and RAW, that really freaks me out because that's not quite center a picture, but that picture there would have been nothing if it had been just shot as a JPEG. But because it was done in RAW, then it was altered by a colleague of mine when we got back, and he sent me this after he tweaked it in Lightroom, because you can just use either Lightroom or any other editing software to boost you know, the darker picture, the darkness of the picture you can boost, but you can boost your colors, and you can just really play with all of that. Okay, so here we go. So inspiration, where are you going to look for inspiration? Because once you've got your drone airborne, I go to Instagram a lot. There are lots of hashtags to follow, but there are companies out there flying their drone and doing amazing they call it aerial cinematography, but unless you're actually flying for cinema, I never call it that. But aerial footage, there's lots and lots of inspiration out there, and then you can look at TV and how that's made. But also I would say is go to Instagram and search on some hashtags, but there are lots and lots to follow. So you know, there's a hashtag called Women Who Drone, and they have a lot of ambassadors all over the world, because I think at the moment, because we're all still sat at home in lockdown, and yes, we may get out and about a little bit, but you may not be able to go abroad. So it might be that they're doing something that inspires you that you could bring back to the UK. And so what I would do is vary your shot, think about the rules of photography, the rules of thirds, and then once you've played with that, start breaking those rules. You know, give us lots of sky, or give us more land, and see how that feels, and change that up. But think about things that you would like to capture from the sky, because once you've got that, it's the whole idea of getting a flying camera in the form of a drone is that you've got a new perspective. Okay, so we're very nearly there through the PowerPoint now, and we're going to get on to inspiration. So for me, inspiring TV would be Drones' Countryfile, Cornwall with Simon Reeves. Then we've got A Day in the Life of Coronavirus. This is mainly aimed at filmmakers, because if you're using your drone, don't just throw the drone in just for drone shot's sake. Think about the emotional feelings. So the day, I know we're still living the day in the life of the coronavirus Britain, but this was directed by somebody that I really admire called Anna Hall for True Vision. It was Channel 4. It's on 4OD. If you fast forward to say it's at 34 minutes, maybe you go to 33 minutes, have a look, and it just shows you that a drone can be used as an emotional tool to rest and give space within your film. Because even if you're making small documentaries or corporate films, sometimes a drone can just give that little bit of a breathing space, because we're very conditioned now to have everything very rapid, and 2 minutes, nobody's going to watch more than 2 minutes. But if you can do that, think about the emotional control. Can drones fly inside? Yes, they can, but you've got to think about the settings that you don't put your return to home on. That say your return to home flies 50 meters, because you're going to end up crashing through a roof trying to return if it loses GPS. It should go into vision positioning when you're flying inside. But if for some reason the drone connects to GPS, it might, and then it loses GPS, it might do return to home, and then so you've got to look at making sure you put those settings in that it flies low on return to home. And then also this one was at Salts Mill. I was working on a documentary style film for Songs of Praise, and they said, about flying inside, and I said, oh yeah, flying inside's no problem, but we're going to kick up a lot of dust. So we kicked up about 100 years plus dust in these warehouse sections of the mill, so it was very, very dusty, so you can only fly for a certain time. So you've got to start thinking a little bit about your environment and where you are. Okay, so what I would suggest is that you plan both videos and stills and vary the shots. I'm going to show you, hopefully they're going to play. I'm going to show you 2 little films that I've made, and you can see that I'm varying the shot and showing different aspects. And while those are playing, I'm going to look at what questions we've got. I'm going to start at the top, and then we'll start answering them. Okay, so there are probably no sound on these, but this is just to show you the transport drones that we have, that have flown over transportation. And it was just to put like a little show reel together, because what I was finding is my show reel was, I just thought for group stuff together, that would be easier to show people, but also easy for me to go through all my archive footage. Okay. So, whilst people are watching that, Les Campbell asked what's a good drone to start without a license. So that would be the Mini 2. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Oh right, that's brilliant. So everybody's getting a little bit of sound going through. So that would be just like a few sound effects and a little bit of music. So excellent. So Laura Moody said, oh, thank you very much for that feedback. I bought a DJI Mavic Mini during the first lockdown. It's changed my photography. I can't wait to get out and with a drone and shoot in RAW. Question 2, that's fine. Question 4 from Steve Champion. I have my CAI operator ID and flyer ID covering the open A1 category and A3, but if I take photographs of landscape ski, which are locations permitted based on the acceptable distance in these categories, can I sell of these images, or do I have to obtain a qualification in a different category to order it? Right, okay, so what you're saying there, Steve, we might need to connect on LinkedIn just for me to go through it in a little bit more depth, but what I would suggest is that what I think is that, yes, I think you can, but if you can't, if you're on LinkedIn or social media on Twitter or Instagram, connect with me there and we'll go into it a bit more depth. I'm going to be around later on this afternoon. I've got a panel session later, but in the in between, I will be online having a look at what questions I wasn't able to answer. Okay. Okay. Oh, so we've got Greg saying open category is not limited to sub. No, I have. Yes, I know that. But what I was trying to do is explain to mini twos. We always get somebody who is qualified and obviously always is quoting CAP 722. So if you just look at CAP 722, that's online and that goes into further depths about the open the categories. Now, what I've not done is gone into all of the different categories because this isn't a training course for that. It's just a little overview. So when you've attended this workshop, first of all, you're not legally qualified to be taking flights, but what I'm just doing is just an overview very briefly about the different categories that respond. So the categories, you are right, Greg, are split into different sizes for different, so you're limited. So a drone that is 900 grams is limited to a certain amount of space that it can fly within. So hopefully, Greg, that's satisfied the what I always term is that people are looking at the minute data, and I understand, but when we only have like 40 minutes, we have to cover so much, and it is just a dip in the toe. But again, if anyone's got any queries about specific categories, well, I don't say specific categories because there is a specific category, okay, so but it open, etc., just contact me on LinkedIn and we'll answer any questions. So, okay, about flight, yeah. So I'd suggest, so I've got a question here from Charlotte that says, I'm already a professional photographer. And so, yeah, I think what you need to do is if you are a professional photographer, you do need to practice flying because it's really important to get the most out of your drone. What you don't want to be doing is, from a safety aspect and commercial operation, etc., what you need to be doing is flying in a safe capacity. So practice is really important. But when I started out, I didn't have any idea. I got a Phantom 3 Pro drone. So and I watched all the videos. I got it airborne. I had a lot of troubleshooting. I'm very technical, but there was a problem with it. It went back to Heli Guy and it came back to me as a brand new drone. And then I got it going. And when I'd watched all these videos, I took off, but I couldn't work out how to land. Obviously, if you are looking to train, I'm going to go through that. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint if that's possible, Lenny, just very quickly. I don't know whether that's still open or not. If we just go back to that, that would be great. So I'm going to skip past this film, hopefully. It will go okay. So what if you're going to get if you're going to go commercial, you want an A2 CFC, which is a certificate of competence, and after 1 day course the person self-certifies. So once you've gone through that process and you've done your exams, you then self-certify, and that means that you go to you say the CAA, I can fly and I can do this. If you go to the next qualification, which is the operational authorization, it replaces a PFCO, and when you renew, you'll get that. This is only for those that are watching that have got a permission for commercial operation, and it's the GVC is the thing that covers the competence-based 2-day training course and then a flight test and an operations manual. That's what that GVC stands for, and it gives you that permission to fly. So the GVC is the ground school, and you come and you go on your test and we go, yes, you can fly. So that's that part, and then you do your ops manual, and then you get the operational authorization, which gives you greater scope within the different categories. So that hopefully will address a little bit of, because I can see there's an awful lot more coming through from commercial drone operators. And this always happens because everybody knows everything, and it's always just a bit of a challenge online. So we've got 3 minutes. I'm just wondering if there is another question that I can answer very briefly. So while if that chat box pops up, that's great, but if it's gone, that's fine. As I say, I'm on LinkedIn. If anyone's got any questions that they didn't ask, please come and ask them. So I work for Global Drone Training, which is Drone Training UK, and we are based all around the UK, and currently we're running our courses online. So an A2CFC is 1 day. It's not just online, so there you go, you just do it online, and then you take the exam. You don't watch videos, it's a real life person in a Zoom setting, and then you do your exams online with us, and we're there to help you. We're not help you to go through the exams, but we're there to support you whilst you're getting ready to do those exams. Then we do the GVC, and that's a second day, so you can stay on for the second day, or you can come back to us when you've done your A2CFC and just do another day plus a practical flight test. Okay, so right, just wait for this to happen. Okay, so that we've gone through that. If you want to connect with me, I am the Drone Lass on Instagram and also on Facebook. So as I say, we have got 2.5 minutes left, but I think the chat box has now disappeared, and I wasn't able to get through all of those. But please do contact me, and yeah, just keep in touch if you've got questions. We're here to support you. It's something that I do a lot. I'm trying to encourage as many people to fly safely as possible. And thank you very much for joining today. Okay. Just going to see if that pops back up. I can't see that chat box. It's disappeared.
Can you hear me, Carys?
I can hear you, Ruth, yes. Okay, so have I ever lost any drones? And no, I haven't. What I would suggest is that you always make sure that you calibrate your compass, and you check and you do follow your instructions and fly in a legal capacity. So that's 400 foot above and 500 meters away in open spaces. Okay, so we are going to run out of time. Thank you very much for joining today. I hope this has been useful, and as I say, it is a very quick walk through drones. If you need to know more, please visit the CAA website. It's really important that you are safe, that yes, you read all the documentation, but they will have extracted the bits that are relevant to you if you're a hobbyist and somebody that's starting to fly out, or if you're a professional photographer and you're starting there. And then, as I say, you can connect with Drone Training. If you contact them, they will give you no hard sales pitch. Currently, I'm only doing flight instruction because I'm doing a lot of work outside of drone training at the moment. And I think we're going to close in about 20 seconds. So thank you so much for joining us today. I thank you very much to Ruth, and thank you very much to Lenny for supporting this event, and to the photography show for supporting me.